and welcome to Business Insight, and this is the Boxing Day edition of the show. Merry Christmas to you and yours. I hope you had a wonderful time yesterday being Christmas. And as Christmas is over, you know, we are drawing closer to the end of the year. And I really do hope you are prepared, because after the festivities are over, and then we are faced with the reality of life, okay? And it becomes business, 2024 business. How do you intend to thrive in your business come 2024? That's what we'll be discussing today. How easy is it to actually set up a business here in Nigeria? So we are talking about the ease of doing business in Nigeria compared to other climes. And this is some information you would be needing, you know, to actually be successful in 2024. And today, to discuss this topic, we have a guest, and is right here in the studio with us. He is Ike Olumba Jonathan. And we would be discussing this topic together to actually give you valid information to equip you with the right information you require, you know, to thrive. And I'm your host, Adesua Iramosele, and we're kicking off the show right now. Welcome again to Business Insight. So, Mr. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here as well.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas.
Yeah, I had a very wonderful Christmas. And how was it for you?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Thank you very much. So now, how would you say Nigeria rates right now when it comes to the ease of doing business?
Okay, so you know what's interesting is that we actually have a ranking that we're doing in conjunction with the World Bank on the ease of doing business. When I look at the data over the last couple of years, I think we've had this for like 5 years. I mean, started from the previous administration. So I think I've seen progress in our ranking, but I think about 190 something countries are being tracked. So, but there's obviously progress, but we are not where we should be in terms of the desired expectations. But I think that we've seen growth in, and we're going to speak about it in some of the indicators that speaks to the ease of doing business. But I think we're doing about 140 something out of 193. So there's obviously progress. We've made progress over time from when this data, you know, started actually being measured.
Okay. I didn't mention earlier that Mr. Jonathan right here is a certified chartered accountant as well as a finance consultant. So he's in the best position to really discuss this this topic. So now, compared to other climes, because in recent times we've had companies leaving Nigeria, and some other ones are coming in. So it's not just them leaving, some are actually coming into Nigeria to invest. Now, would you say that is, would you say the Nigerian environment, you know, is conducive when it comes to business, basically?
Okay, so I think we also have to put into context, you know, what we're discussing. Because when you look at businesses, there are several types of businesses, from the small businesses to even the informal businesses to the big corporates, the big manufacturing. When you speak about businesses leaving the country, I believe that you're making references to some of the big corporates that we're seeing, I mean, who have indicated interest to want to exit, you know, on their operations in the country. If I look at it in terms of what it has been and perhaps what could be the reasons, because I did read some of the corporate reports from those big corporates indicating that they wanted to exit. Some of them spoke about the high cost of doing business, and there's also obviously the conversation around wanting to change the business model. So for some of them, not necessarily are they leaving in terms of their corporate presence. They're still going to be here, but the form in which they'll be running the businesses. So many of them want to transit from, you know, manufacturing to trading, and it's just really speaking to the cost dynamics. Now, but for the other forms of businesses, you also alluded to the fact that some other businesses are also setting up here as well too. To the other forms of businesses that we do have, I think that a reality with 2023, and you can take you from what happened when we had the new government come in and made the pronouncement around the increase in the fuel price and the removal of subsidy. I think what we can all appreciate is that there's an increase in the operational cost of doing business in the country. Although there can be arguments around, okay, is this going to be a short-term thing versus a long-term thing? But the reality is that the operational cost for doing business, and I'm sure it also extends to this TV station, the operational cost of running a business in the country is actually quite high. I mean, the single most driver of our cost in the country, which is the pump price, right, has gone up. So you should also expect that that has trickled down in terms of operating cost of doing business. So in fairness, 2023 has actually been one that's been characterized by a higher cost of running business in the country.
Okay, that's for 2023. We hope 2024 would be better. Now, I'm looking at other factors that might impede the setup of businesses here in Nigeria, such as infrastructural limitation, governmental policies, access to funds, and other factors. We still realize that some businesses still thrive, despite all of this, probably because of their entrepreneurial spirit and all of that, Nigerians really have that. We are very entrepreneurial. Now, would you say that, Nigeria is a good place to actually set up businesses? Because there are some other countries like Singapore, Switzerland, and, in other climes, whereby they have been rated statistically that, they are, there's a high level of ease of doing business in those climes. Do you think Nigeria, has a lot to still learn to ensure that our environment is conducive for businesses?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question. I'm a very big optimist in what the potentials are in the country. So if you pose the question around, do I still believe that Nigeria is a very viable place for doing business? Obviously, I'm going to give a positive response. And I can back that with some sort of statistics. So our share size, I mean, this is a country with over 200 million, right? So if you just think about it, any sort of product that you have that can even target 1% of 200 and something million, I mean, that's easily 2 point something million. That in itself will mean that, you've got big business to do. And if you even look at some sectors that I think where we've experienced growth, even in spite of what the operational cost I spoke about. So let's take the creative sector, for example, right? With the creative economy, so for example, content creators like we see, and the amount of people who consume their content, even when you even look at what we have with our musical artists as well too, also those as well too in Nollywood, right? So you see that they've also experienced some boom, right? And that's also taking advantage of one, technology, but beyond technology as well too, is that there's a population to consume this content. And many of them are monetizing their skills, monetizing their wealth of experience, through the content that they are creating, and the population is there to consume it. And those platforms actually, paying them, for the number of views that they get, on the platforms where they stream their content, right? So that's one. There's also the potential that we have as a country in terms of our shared natural resources. So if I think of sectors like agric, right? I think agric has, very strong potentials, like we've always said. I mean, whether you look at it from the perspective of around food is a basic necessity we all eat, right? So people playing across several parts of the agric value chain in themselves will always find that there's the population that would still make demands on their food. I know that the government a couple of years ago played around with the idea of banning certain kind of food items that we can grow. So the idea was to grow and feed the country. And so many people playing and plugging along that value chain in themselves too, also finding out that they are creating opportunities to be prosperous. So agric definitely is one. And I also think as well too that innovation in itself, wherever you find people with innovative tendencies and capabilities as well too, always sort of creates that opportunity. And I think that for many businesses that have chosen, to operate in a very innovative manner, whether it's with a new business model, I think that those businesses will also find big opportunities here. And let's make no mistake, right? The world really is looking at Africa. So there's a couple of financial inflows that are coming to Africa. And when they really look at Africa, one of the countries that really stands out very tall is really Nigeria and the Nigerian economy. So I think there's still some things to be positive around.
Okay. So now, how would you advise or recommend that for people who intend to set up businesses here, what does it take to really set up a formidable business here in Nigeria?
That's a very good question, and you also spoke about infrastructure a bit. So I'll break it in two ways, right? One will be formal businesses, meaning going to business in a formal manner, being well structured, which I strongly recommend, and they're also informal businesses. Let's take, for example, what we see around the space I'll call financial inclusion, and I'll just make a case for those who do things like POSs, trying to just connect people that don't really have direct access to some of our financial services. Anybody today that just goes and sits outside today with a POS terminal, get connected to some of those digital banks, piloting this financial inclusion move, you find that they would always find themselves in business. I was going through a street yesterday and I saw more than 10 POSs, and across all those 10 POSs, I saw quite a lot of queue. I saw a lot of people who were out there, wanting to access financial services from those POS operators. That's just a case of informal businesses. If you think about even people who sell food, right, in informal places as well too, that's opportunity, right? Now, but in terms of the formal businesses and what are some of those things that can sort of accelerate it, I think for me, the first thing is from the legal standpoint. So things like even CAC registration. CAC, I mean the Corporate Affairs Commission, just registering your business. Now, the beautiful thing is when I started, I spoke about the fact that ease of business is something that is now even being tracked. And we have a project we are doing with the World Bank. It is so easy now to even open a corporate account that, a company, right, or a business, whether it's sole proprietorship you want to open, whether it's partnership you want to do, whether it's a limited liability business, it is something that you can actually do in a couple of days. In fact, I've seen cases where businesses can be, sort of incorporated even within a 24-hour span, because these things have been digitized, and this is the outcome of that ease of doing business project that I really did speak about. So in terms of starting a business, going into a business from the formal perspective, you've got your CAC registration that can happen quickly, and you also have got the opportunity now, things are getting more integrated. You can actually even, register your business with the CAC, open a bank account, that allows you. There will obviously be a couple of other issues around, where are you going to set up? Are you going to set up in a location where you're going to pay for rent? Some people can work remotely or use rented, spaces. But I think that, it's quite opening up a bit, and there are successful stories of time from when this data, started actually being measured.
Okay. I didn't mention earlier that Mr. Jonathan right here is a certified chartered accountant as well as a finance consultant. So he's in the best position to really discuss this this topic. So now, compared to other clients, because in recent times we've had companies leaving Nigeria, and some other ones are coming in. So it's not just them leaving. Some are actually coming into Nigeria to invest. Now, would you say that is, would you say the Nigerian environment, is conducive when it comes to business, basically?
Okay, so I think we also have to put into context, what we're discussing. Because when you look at businesses, there are several types of businesses, from the small businesses to even the informal businesses to the big corporates, the big manufacturing. When you speak about businesses leaving the country, I believe that you're making references to some of the big corporates that we're seeing, who have indicated interest to want to exit, on their operations in the country. If I look at it in terms of what it has been and perhaps what could be the reasons, because I did read some of the corporate reports from those big corporates indicating that they wanted to exit. Some of them spoke about the high cost of doing business, and there's also obviously the conversation around wanting to change the business model. So for some of them, not necessarily are they leaving in terms of their corporate presence. They're still going to be here, but the form in which they'll be running the businesses. So many of them want to transit from, manufacturing to trading, and it's just really speaking to the cost dynamics. Now, but for the other forms of businesses, you also alluded to the fact that some other businesses are also setting up here as well too. To the other forms of businesses that we do have, I think that a reality with 2023, and you can take you from what happened when we had the new government come in and made the pronouncement around the increase in the fuel price and the removal of subsidy. I think what we can all appreciate is that there's an increase in the operational cost of doing business in the country. Although there can be arguments around, okay, is this going to be a short-term thing versus a long-term thing? But the reality is that the operational cost for doing business, and I'm sure it also extends to this TV station, the operational cost of running a business in the country is actually quite high. The single most driver of our cost in the country, which is the pump price, right, has gone up. So you should also expect that has trickled down in terms of operating cost of doing business. So in fairness, 2023 has actually been one that's been characterized by a higher cost of running business in the country.
Okay, that's for 2023. We hope 2024 would be better. Now, I'm looking at other factors that might impede the setup of businesses here in Nigeria, such as infrastructural limitation, governmental policies, access to funds, and other factors. We still realize that some businesses still thrive, despite all of this, probably because of their entrepreneurial spirit and all of that, Nigerians really have that. We are very entrepreneurial. Now, would you say that, Nigeria is a good place to actually set up businesses? Because there are some other countries like Singapore, Switzerland, and, in other climes, whereby they have been rated statistically that, they are, there's a high level of ease of doing business in those climes. Do you think Nigeria, has a lot to still learn to ensure that our environment is conducive for businesses?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I'm a very big optimist in what the potentials are in the country. So if you pose the question around, do I still believe that Nigeria is a very viable place for doing business? Obviously, I'm going to give you a positive response. And I can back that with some sort of statistics. So our share size, this is a country with over 200 million, right? So if you just think about it, any sort of product that you have that can even target 1% of 200 and something million, that's easily 2 point something million. That in itself will mean that you've got big business to do. And if you even look at some sectors that I think where we've experienced growth, even in spite of what the operational cost I spoke about. So let's take the creative sector, for example, right? With the creative economy, so for example, content creators like we see, and the amount of people who consume their content, even when you even look at what we have with our musical artists as well too, also those as well too in Nollywood, right? So you see that they've also experienced some boom, right? And that's also taking advantage of one, technology, but beyond technology as well too, is that there's a population to consume this content. And many of them are monetizing their skills, monetizing their wealth of experience, through the content that they are creating, and the population is there to consume it. And those platforms actually, paying them, for the number of views that they get, on the platforms where they stream their content, right? So that's one. There's also the potential that we have as a country in terms of our shared natural resources. So if I think of sectors like agric, right? I think agric has, very strong potentials, like we've always said. I mean, whether you look at it from the perspective of around food is a basic necessity we all eat, right? So people playing across several parts of the agric value chain in themselves will always find that there's the population that would still make demands on their food. I know that the government a couple of years ago played around with the idea of banning certain kind of food items that we can grow. So the idea was to grow and feed the country. And so many people playing and plugging along that value chain in themselves too, also finding out that they are creating opportunities to be prosperous. So agric definitely is one. And I also think as well too that innovation in itself, wherever you find people with innovative tendencies and capabilities as well too, always sort of creates that opportunity. And I think that for many businesses that have chosen, to operate in a very innovative manner, whether it's with a new business model, I think that those businesses will also find big opportunities here. And let's make no mistake, right? The world really is looking at Africa. So there's a couple of financial inflows that are coming to Africa. And when they really look at Africa, one of the countries that really stands out very tall is really Nigeria and the Nigerian economy. So I think there's still some things to be positive around.
Okay. So now, how would you advise or recommend that for people who intend to set up businesses here, what does it take to really set up a formidable business here in Nigeria?
That's a very good question, and you also spoke about infrastructure a bit. So I'll break it in two ways, right? One would be formal businesses, meaning going to business in a formal manner, being well structured, which I strongly recommend, and they're also informal businesses. Let's take, for example, what we see around the space I'll call financial inclusion, and I'll just make a case for those who do things like POSs, trying to just connect people that don't really have direct access to some of our financial services. Anybody today that just goes and sits outside today with a POS terminal or get connected to some of those digital banks, piloting this financial inclusion move, you find that they would always find themselves in business. I was going through a street yesterday and I saw more than 10 POSs, and across all those 10 POSs, I saw quite a lot of queue. I saw a lot of people who were out there, wanting to access financial services from those POS operators. That's just a case of informal businesses. If you think about even people who sell food, right, in informal places as well too, that's opportunity, right? Now, but in terms of the formal businesses and what are some of those things that can sort of accelerate it, I think for me the first thing is from the legal standpoint. So things like even CAC registration. CAC, I mean the Corporate Affairs Commission, just registering your business. Now, the beautiful thing is when I started, I spoke about the fact that ease of business is something that is now even being tracked. And we have a project we are doing with the World Bank. It is so easy now to even open a corporate account that, a company, right, or a business, whether it's sole proprietorship you want to open, whether it's partnership you want to do, whether it's a limited liability business, it is something that you can actually do in a couple of days. In fact, I've seen cases where businesses can be, sort of incorporated even within a 24-hour span because these things have been digitized, and this is the outcome of that ease of doing business project that I really did speak about. So in terms of starting a business, going into a business from the formal perspective, you've got your CAC registration that can happen quickly, and you also have got the opportunity now, things are getting more integrated. You can actually even, register your business with the CAC, open a bank account, that allows you. There will obviously be a couple of other issues around, where are you going to set up? Are you going to set up in a location where you're going to pay for rent? Some people can work remotely or use rented, spaces. But I think that, it's quite opening up a bit, and there are successful stories of businesses that, have started in the country and also making a case for themselves.
All right, Mr. Jonathan, now, of course, we know that the federal government is doing everything it can to ensure that we get investors into Nigeria, to invest in different sectors. Now, do you think Nigeria has the right skill sets, to actually fill up these positions? Now, when these investors come, they will need hands to actually perform or, work in these companies. So do you think we are well equipped to actually take up this kind of jobs? Because it would be ridiculous to have these investors out to, having to go to their own country to get people to come work in their companies. It has to be Nigerians. Do you think we are ready for that?
Okay, again, I always like the way you pose your questions because there are several legs to it. So do we have the skill set in the country? Now, that's a very interesting one, because I'm sure you are very in tune with the Japa phenomenon. And there are quite a lot of international companies who are, or countries actually, not even just the companies. A couple of countries have seen that, look, there's a need for us to be able to get talent and get people and get skill sets anywhere in the world. And many of them have been very, very big on also accommodating Nigerians, who meet, some of those skills requirements to come into their country. So from that perspective, yes, we have it. Now, do we have enough to fill our own local demand? Then we can begin to talk about, okay, the pipeline, where it starts from. So, for example, what's the quality of the people who are coming into the job market? What's the quality of the graduates that we do have? And what I really see is that many corporations in the country, even when they come in, or those who are even locally, incorporated and also grow, also have to take some responsibility for upskilling, right, and improving the skill sets of the kind of people that they want to work for them, right? So to that extent, just look at the number of universities, look at the number of NYC sort of batches we run in a year. We run about 3 times. That's people who are coming to the job market. That also represents people. Even our share size of our population. In fact, the number of universities, private universities opening up also tells you the number of people who are also going to be potentially coming into the labor market as well. So I think we have quite a couple. We have a lot of people coming into the job market, but that doesn't take away the fact that anybody coming to invest in the country still also has to, do some upskilling, some retraining to make them fit for purpose for their workspace. So I think we have. A minister once boasted that even if, most of our doctors leave the country, that we have sufficient number of doctors, to do the work. Right. So I think there's an argument to say we have the skill set because of our share numbers, and what we see. In fact, there's a lot of people now who say things about people being unemployed or underemployed. So I think we have the people, which we translate to the skill set, but I'm saying that we must still do retraining to make them fit and proper for the work environment.
Okay, very, very well, Mr. Jonathan. Now, let's look at governmental policies.
Good.
Do you think the policies here in Nigeria really favors businesses? And if that's the case, or if that's not the case, what do you think government can do differently to ensure that the environment in Nigeria is conducive for business?
Very good question. So the thing is, there are several policies, and it can't be one policy that would make a conducive environment for business, because the business environment is just a couple of different factors. Let's take, for instance, one that will be easily relatable. Let's take tax. So as a company right now in Nigeria, right, as a company, and I use the word company because not all businesses are company, you can have sole proprietorship, but as a company right now in Nigeria, if your annual turnover is within a certain threshold, and this is 25 million, right? So within 25 million and below, the company income tax as of today stipulates that such a company will pay tax at 0%, right? So for companies, that do an annual turnover of 25 million and below, that is one policy that you can say directly speaks to businesses registered as companies, or you might argue small companies, and that's something that they can sort of benefit from. If you look at the policies around, okay, what's the minimum tax, or things like minimum tax for employees, so employee-related taxes, right? So, for example, anyone that earns the minimum wage, the minimum wage in the country is 30,000 naira as of today. Anyone that earns the minimum wage is actually exempted from, paying a personal income tax. You can see some sort of direct benefits. But there are also broader issues as well, too, that, where you might now begin to say, okay, what's going on. So one is the multiplicity of so many taxes. And don't forget that businesses are also located within states in the country. So you might find a situation where, yes, there's a federal government tax that they can derive from, but there are also state-related taxes that apply. In fact, in some cases, they're actually local government-related taxes, right? So you might then find that issues like multiple taxes, lack of tax harmonization, in itself too might also become a challenge. That's also one side to look at it. There's also the legal side. So when you think about businesses coming to set up here in the country, one very strong thing that they look at is what's your legal framework. Averagely, if you have a dispute, so many companies are big on repatriating funds and getting funds, so if you take an international business, once they come into the country, one of the things that they'll be very, very paramount around is how can we repatriate our funds back to our investors who most likely will not be here in Nigeria. So what are the policies around that? Do you know what is going on with the airlines? And part of the reasons why there's a lot of conversations around, the price of the dollar experiencing that, spiral hike, is also because many of the international businesses that have invested here are even finding it difficult to be able to access the dollars that they need, right, to be able to repatriate back to their own investors. And again, if you look at, like I was speaking about legal protection, how long does it take for a court case to get settled? So if you're going to have those kind of issues, how long will it take you? So your legal environment, right, your policies around funds or capital flight or capital movement back to the country, what does it speak to? Rule of law, security, which is a very big issue. I mean, just take what's going on in the Southeast, right, where sometimes you find that every Mondays now you hear that there's a sit at home. It has an impact on businesses that have invested in those places, and what it feels like, even for the cost of doing business for them or the ease of doing business, where essentially your productivity will be reduced for a period. So I could speak to some positives. There are also some things that we could do much better. I think the security situation can be much better, right? So these are some of the issues that we can take into perspective. So I think it's really a mix.
Okay. All right. Now, do you think that there are some cultural and social factors to be considered when setting up a business in Nigeria?
Yes. I think there are social issues you've got to look at, right? And there are also cultural issues. And the best way to look at it is also a function of, the location. Let me just categorize them into urban and rural. If your business will be set up in an urban location, so obviously your customers are people who live in the urban areas, your modus operandi, your mode of operation have got to also speak to those kind of people as well too. So for example, I struggle to imagine now that if you're going to be setting up a business in an urban location, you would also think about how we can do fulfillment of their orders, using online means and using online platforms. So that's also something you've got to take into consideration. Maybe if your business is set up in a rural location, yes, there's a lot of interaction that needs to happen, with your customers and you, the times you open, and your closing times. There'll be those things. In some places in the country, there are also some religious sensitivities according to the kind of things that you sell. I was watching a video in a part of the north where they were destroying some alcoholic drinks. Right, so those things also connote some bit of culture as well too, if you want to argue sensitivities to that. So one of the things we say in a business when planning for business really is that you've got to understand the environment, and understanding the environment also extends to understanding the locality, the location of where you are set up, and the peculiarities around them, because every business primarily too also wants to be able to provide a product or a service that customers will purchase. So yes, there's that strong linkage as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jonathan. We'll be going on a quick break. When we return, we'll be, moving on in this conversation about the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Come 2024, lots of businesses would spring up. Now, how easy would it be for them to actually set up companies in Nigeria? This is the topic we have been discussing for the past couple of minutes. We'll be going on a break now, and when we come back, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Blessing Daiche, anchor and exchange on Souq News. The beautiful season is here again.
I smell Christmas.
Ta-da! It's Christmas.
Christmas is a holiday where we celebrate the birth of Christ. It is a super celebration where we share love and many cheers.
Christmas, a time to make merry and show love. Spend time. Go out there and spend time with your family and friends and loved ones. I mean, you don't get to do that.
Don't get to see family.
Exactly.
I can't wait to have my plate of rice and chicken.
I'm Adesiwa Iramasele. I'm a presenter and anchor right here on Souq News.
I am Osama Zaida Hosa, Femi Watch Limited owner of Souq News and Watch Radio. Wishing you a very wonderful Christmas represent the incarnation of God, becoming man and showing us the greatest of love. It's a season to love one another. Show love to your brother out there and let the love move around.
Welcome back. You're still watching Business Insight, and we still have our guests in-house, and is Jonathan Ike Olumba, and he is a certified chartered accountant and a finance consultant, and is here discussing the topic on how easy it is to set up a business in Nigeria and everything you would be requiring to do that, especially in the coming year. So now, Mr. Jonathan, how would you let's talk about risk. What are the risks involved in actually setting up a business? You know, because sometimes you have a different plan for a business, you know, a completely different plan, different strategies, everything set up, you know, but in the course of the year or in the course of the period, you just start to see different changes. For instance, now, currently we are experiencing some level of cashlessness, the same thing that happened at the beginning of the year. It's seeming as though it is coming back again, and that is really scary. Now, these are unforeseen issues. You know, how does a business, you know, right from the start, prepare for this kind of challenges before it even comes up?
Thank you, Adesua. You know, the interesting thing is that business in itself is a risk. So every day you go to your business, there's actually a risk, you know, will the business be there? You know, could anything happen? Could there be a force majeure? So just business by its sheer nature is a risk. But in terms of what are some of the risks to look at, one of the critical things is that even as a business, you must do your risk analysis on an ongoing basis. And the risk is quite wide. Almost every critical part of a business is quite inherent. I mean, there are quite some risks that are inherent in it. So let's take, for instance, for example, things like political risk. One of the things that will bother a business in this country will be policy stability, which is part of political risk. You know, the risk that, you know, if there's one policy today, that there will not be a policy reversal tomorrow. And that's something that I think many businesses look out for. In fact, in 2023, which you find with every election here, every 4 years, right? So in 2027, we'd have something similar. One of the things we suffered was that, you know, businesses, especially investors, were trying to watch to see what policy direction. Were we going to have continuity of the same government, or were we going to have a change in different governments? And this year was quite keenly contested, because I think for the first time in a long time, we had 3 leading candidates. Normally, you literally find 2. But we found 3. So there's that political risk that we try to see, whether it's from change in leadership or political stability. And even across the states, there were quite a lot, about 28 state elections. So that's on one side. There's also the economic risk. And with economic risk, it's quite wide. I'll just highlight about 3. You know, there's exchange rate risk, which is a big one. Whether you like it or not, right? What happens with the fluctuation of the naira to the dollar impacts almost every business you find in the country. And, you know, it's not a hidden fact that, you know, we generally agree that this is an import-dependent country. So every time we see fluctuations, and I think we saw it, and I think it's still even happening even till now, you know, the fluctuation and the movements, you know, in the rates, we look at the dollar to the naira, right? There's also interest rate risk as well, too. The truth is that if you want to access capital, and I'm thinking we'll speak about that quite very soon, if you want to access capital in this country, you want to get a loan from the bank, what is the rate of getting a loan from the bank? At what cost does it come to many businesses, right? And this is a risk. The risk that if you need capital, if you need funding for expansion, can you get it? If you are going to get it, at what rates are you going to get it from? These are some of the issues. Then there's security risk as well, too, right? Not every part of the country witnesses the same sort of stability in terms of security, right? Almost every day we heard about what happened in states like Kaduna. You hear about what happens in some part of the north, even in some part of the southwest as well too. So this is a big risk, depending, you know, because we are speaking nationally, and I'm saying that we also have to domesticate this as a function of where are these businesses located, and we're going to find those kind of issues. Another risk I want to highlight that I think is a very strong one is technology risk as well too. I think that the opportunities for many business to survive and grow in this country, technology plays a strong part of it. So there's obviously a risk for you as a business in the country if you are not leveraging technology, whether it's from your marketing to your processes to even your presence or your business model, being able to serve a customer online and, you know, initiate and conclude transactions online. I think these are some of the big risks, you know, that businesses that are in Nigeria are exposed to, and some of the risks that they've got to think about. The other ones I could talk about right now, like things around environmental risk, climate change, and all that. But I think those ones I spoke about really stands very tall.
Okay.
And let me just add people as well too. A big one is people risk as well too. Getting the right kind of people, the right kind of motivated people, you know, getting the people who would, you know, sort of go through with the vision for your business, I think is a big issue as well today, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to highlight that.
Yes, that's very worthy of note. Okay, now you mentioned access to finance, and that is a very, very crucial aspect to it, because every now and then we have government disbursing funds, you know, to finance especially small and medium scale enterprises. Now, how easy is it to access this loans, sometimes grants? You know, how easy is it to access finance in business in Nigeria?
All right. So the thing with finance is that for businesses, there are broadly, let me say 3 types, because you mentioned grants, I'll add it, right? There are broadly 3 types of ways you can look at access to finance. One is access to loans, which is access to debt. The other one is access to grants. And then the third one will be, for me, access to equity, which is getting direct investments into your business, right? Getting investors investing into the business to become, you know, part of the business. And if I look at the ease of access, I'll take the 3 of them. So let's start with grants, since you mentioned grants. Well, you can get grants from the government, right? But really, how many of it are available to go around, right? That's one. But more importantly is you can get grants from private individuals. There are many firms that I mean, and this is public information, right, that provide grants, you know, to businesses, but they are very keenly competitive, very, very competitive, right? So I know that, for example, like Itunmelu Foundation does, you know, a $10,000 grants that they do, but really how many people, you know, can access those grants? So that's also something to bear in mind with grants. So it's quite, the chances of getting grants is quite very slim because it is very competitive. And look, there's a statistics I have that the number of small businesses in the country, it's about 49 million, right? So how many of such kind of funding grants can go around this number? Just to give you that as perspective. Let's go to loans. Access to loans and access to debt, right? The problem here is the cost. Debt is not free financing. You've got to pay back, right, with an interest. So what's the cost? I'll tell you something for free. The cost of getting a loan today is in double digits. The easiest loan you can get today from any of these commercial banks is in double digits. And that means that if you are going to access that kind of funding, you would have to access funding at double digits, and then you are going to make a return, ideally, that should be more than that cost, I mean, that interest you are paying on those loans. So that's one. Now, in terms of access to equity, the honest truth is that many businesses, especially for the small ones, are not able to get lots of investment flows coming in because the businesses themselves are not yet well structured to get international investment coming in, or even sometimes even local investment. You know, many of these businesses lack structure, lack succession plan. And these are some of the critical things, tax compliance. These are some of the critical things that any investor coming into a business wants to first of all look out for. Do you comply with the law? What's your structure? Is this a one-man business? Is there a key man risk here? You know, what if something happens to the founder? You know, will the business always be there? Is the business model something you can test, you can be trust, and you can trust, right? So these are some of the critical issues that we see, you know, when we speak to access to finance. So by and large, there are several ways to access finance. I've spoken about 3, but I think that what I see currently is that there are quite strong challenges with accessing all 3, but doesn't mean that businesses can access them. It just means that those businesses have to stand out, you know, from the crowd in terms of accessing them. But sometimes you find interventions, you know, here and there, but holistically, any business that want to access funding have got to be structured for funding, right? And just think about how that structure allows them to be attractive to getting financing.
Okay. So now let's look at technology, you know, artificial intelligence,
Great.
because that is no longer the future, it is
Yeah.
our reality now. So how do you recommend that small businesses or businesses generally, you know, utilize this innovation of artificial intelligence to actually ensure that they thrive, basically?
So I think one of the technology that will revolutionize mankind is what we are dealing with today, AI. Literally, you know, a technology that can replicate, you know, human intelligence. And the thing I would say is that it has the potential to change the world drastically. And to be honest, if you use it responsibly, if you use it ethically, it can do a lot of transformation. Whether it's from content creation for businesses, you can harness AI. Whether it's for marketing and sales, you can harness AI. Whether it's for operational efficiency, you can harness AI. Whether it's even to support your workforce. There are quite a couple of companies now on their website that, you know, you find chatbots, right? You find, you know, AI attending to people. In fact, I have an interesting case study I share about, you know, some businesses outside of the country where you even have AI as part of the board members making strategic decisions, you know, for the business. So AI has the potential to revolutionize, you know, businesses, but it must be used responsibly. And I think that we're just beginning to see it. We're scratching the surface right now. I think the potential for AI to transform every part of the business is actually very, very big and very strong.
All right, Mr. Jonathan, we are, time is against us, but I would like to hear your final thoughts on this topic. What would be, you know, of course, in the course of this conversation, there must have been some thoughts you had that you were not, that I probably didn't ask the question, so you want to share that with us?
So for me is, I think we should speak more on the positives. And for me, I would say that 2023 had some peculiarities because one, it was a transition year from one government to another government. It was an election year. So generally, many investors view 2023 with caution. But I think that we're going to see 2024, you know, open up more opportunities for businesses. I want businesses to be very positive. Many of the state governments and the national, and the federal government, where there has been a change, this is the year where they're now going to start implementing their own policies. So I think that what is very clear across, you know, the state government and federal government is that businesses must thrive for the economy to thrive. And so I think that let's just brace up and see how we can key into some of the initiatives. But I believe that 2024 is going to be a very good year for businesses in the country. Thank
you very much, Mr. Jonathan, for joining us on Business Insights today. And we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful celebration, basically.
Yeah, thank you, and happy Boxing Day.
Happy Boxing Day. So I'm actually wondering why you didn't come with a box for us, but that's fine. All right, so that's the size of the show. Business Insight is the show, and this is the Boxing Day edition. Many thanks to you for joining us as always, and we wish you a very wonderful celebration from everyone on the team. I wish you a very Merry Christmas. I'm Adesuwa Ramasele, and I'll see you again tomorrow because we don't go on break here. We are always right here to give you information about your business to help you thrive every day of the week, and we don't have any days off, okay? So I'll see you again tomorrow for another more interesting and, you know, enlightening conversation. I'll see you then. Have a good day. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Yes, that's how we'll welcome you to Business Insight today, being Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Hope you are having fun. Hope you're having a wonderful time with family and friends. Yes, this is a season to be merry, and today is indeed the very day we have been looking forward to. Christmas Day is an amazing day, and we are excited about Christmas. All right, but today is also a good day to still talk business. Even as you are eating that chicken with one hand, also prepare for your business, okay? Because come 2024, you would need some information to help you thrive in your business. And that's what we'll be helping you do right here on Business Insight on Souq News, okay? Because we don't go on break. We make sure that we are always available to keep you abreast with the latest happenings when it comes to business, all right? I'm your host, Adesua Iromosele, and today we will be discussing a topic talking about navigating financial challenges in Nigeria, even during the festive season. How do you navigate financial challenges to ensure that you don't run out of cash in the course of all of this celebration? How do you go about it? This is a topic we will be discussing today, and we have a guest who is joining us virtually. He is Segun Shopito, and he is our guest for today. Good morning to you, Mr. Segun. Hope you can.
Good morning. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to yes, Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Segun. Thank you for joining us on Business Insight on such a wonderful day as this. So now, what would you say about the festive season? I mean, today is Christmas Day. How would you rate this Christmas compared to previous ones? How do you just see the day? How, how interesting is it when it comes to business and every other thing? Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, Merry Christmas again. Christmas is always a day to celebrate. The celebration tends to cut across no matter what your religion is. Christmas is a universal a day that everybody all over the world has adopted. Whether you like it or not, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or whatever, it's become such that 25th and 26th of every year, the mood, in the community, in the society, wherever country you live in, anywhere in the world, the mood is generally tends to be upbeat, high tempo. Usually long before the 25th and 26th, a lot of activity would have started to prepare people for that day. And I don't think it's been different this year. Of course, there's a context, which is the current economic challenges that the country and its citizens and its businesses are facing. There's so much going on in terms of macroeconomic issues, in terms of what's happening in the larger society financially, and that is a bit of a dampener on the mood, for the season. So you find, for example, that the usual razzmatazz, the usual bright lights and colors that you would associate with Christmas, it's there, but it's nowhere near what we have seen in the past. So it's almost as if year after year, in the last 5-6 years, the mood of Christmas has kind of gone down slightly more and more because of financial challenges. So even businesses that you would think would spend huge amounts of money decorating their buildings and decorating their offices, brightening things up with the Christmas lights, and all the installations, they're toning that down significantly. I went into a banking hall yesterday, before the break, before the public holidays, and I was shocked. I mean, this is a major bank, a major tier 1 bank, and there was hardly anything. I saw one single garland, one single small strip of green fluffy material. And that was on the desk of, I think they must have been the head of operations. And that was it in that branch. And I was absolutely shocked. But that's our reality today. So there's a lot of challenges. And I guess that's one of the reasons that you want us to talk about, some of these challenges and how we can navigate our way through it. But nevertheless, it's Christmas, and whatever happens, my advice to everybody is just stay positive and be happy, and enjoy the celebratory mood of the season.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Segun. Now, what would you highlight as some of the challenges associated with the festive season generally?
Well, generally speaking, there are a number of issues that tend to come up as challenges during the festive season. Financially on the one hand, but generally also in terms of just larger society. For example, security situation generally tends to become a bit more volatile. You see that there's a lot of crime. There's a lot of an uptick in criminal activities, kidnapping, people that are looking for money to make it to the end of the year, for example, and who are criminally minded tend to ramp up their activities during this period. So it's a period for people to generally become a bit more security conscious, just as an example of some of the things that tend to happen during this period. The other thing, obviously, is it's a season for spending. So for individuals, just going about their lives, what you find is that in this festive period, you will have to put money together and spend more than you usually would. Your children, if a family man, would have big expectations of you. If it's the business, they also will tend to, your salaries, your staff, for example, would expect that you would give them Christmas bonuses, and all of that. So you find that whether you're an individual or an organization, your spending expectations will be higher during this period. And this is not, this is what we're seeing now. It's not different this year.
Okay. In recent times, we've been experiencing some level of shortage of cash. And that is seeming to be posing some kind of challenge, in this whole festivity that we're experiencing. So what are your thoughts concerning that?
Very unfortunate. So what we're experiencing now is a combination of the pre-existing unresolved issues surrounding the cash currency redesign policy and the increase in the demand for cash because of increase in cash expenditure that is typically associated with Christmas. During the Christmas season and the New Year season, this festive period at the end of the year, you find that, like I said before, there will be an increase in spending. People go to the markets more to shop for the things that they're going to, eat, for example. And a lot of these transactions are cash-based. And then this has now unfortunately coincided with a situation where the CBN has allowed the uncertainties around the legal tender status of the two notes, the new notes and the old notes, to drag and coincide with this uptake in cash transactions. And this has created a scarcity and a shortage in cash, with all of the attendant challenges, with people having to queue at ATMs in particular, because majority of the banks have set limits for over-the-counter cash withdrawals, such that it would make no sense to go into the banking hall to say you want to withdraw, because if you want to take 20,000, they'll tell you, no, you can't. We can only pay you 5,000 per withdrawal. So you go queue at the ATM, and then even at the ATM, per transaction is still limited to 5,000, so you end up having to maybe do 6 withdrawals if you want to collect just 30,000 naira, which then extends the wait time that everybody is spending at that ATM. So you see long queues at ATMs. The POS operators have increased their charges. Some have doubled their charges. So if you used to pay 100 naira, for every 0 to 5,000, for example, and then 200 naira for from 10,000 and above, you are paying 200 and 400 naira respectively, and it goes up all the way like that. So the cash scarcity has created additional pressures for people that are celebrating during the season. And it's very unfortunate, but that's where we are. Hopefully, maybe government will do something to resolve it before the end of the year, but I doubt it. I think that everybody will just have to find a way around these challenges, maybe lean more towards electronic payments, mobile banking, and all of those other channels, rather than depending on cash as much as you can avoid it.
All right. Now, Mr. Segun, there is this conversation about banks collaborating with POS operators to create some level of shortage of cash, and then so the POS operators can then charge higher for their services. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that happens. It happens, but what we're experiencing now is bigger than that. This is actually not new. What you find sometimes is that even before this scarcity thing started, you go to a bank that has an array of ATM machines. Maybe they have an ATM hall, and they have 20 ATMs there or 10 ATMs. And you walk into that place and not one single one of those ATMs would have cash, or they would have cash, but of course, because of the pressure on that one machine, it gets exhausted quickly. And then people will be forced to go to POS providers right beside the bank. And what we found over time, and as you know, and as I'm sure a lot of members of the public now know, is that there is a deal between those POS operators and the branch managers of those banks. In fact, in some cases, those POS operators actually work for the branch manager. So those things happen. They're not new. But what is going on now is obviously way beyond that, because this is national. It's nationwide. Anywhere you go across the country today, there's a scarcity of cash at the ATM. So it's not the kind of thing that can be explained away on the back of these types of schemes, I would call it, that some of our branch managers engage in. I think this is just a systemic problem that the monetary authorities would need to try to resolve, to reduce the suffering of Nigerians during this period. Okay.
If I didn't mention this before, Mr. Segun Sopiton, he is the chairman of Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network, and that was what prompted that question. Now, still in that light, what can be done to ensure some kind of transparency? Because, I mean, having banks collaborating with POS operators, I mean, how do we tackle such a challenge? Because we really cannot have another level of shortage of cash like we had at the beginning of the year, especially during this festive season. What can be done to curb that?
Well, there are two things that will happen. One is that the regulatory authorities will need to ramp up their monitoring and regulatory activities, conduct sting operations, find a way to scapegoat a few people. All you need to do is find one or two high-profile bank officials and prove that they are involved in this scheme, and prove that their activities are criminal, and then just hit them hard with the law. That will serve as a disincentive for others that are involved in such schemes. The other thing, of course, is that this problem will likely go away in January. So we're not likely to see an escalation of this to the levels that we saw in February and March of this year, because that period was driven by real scarcity of cash. In this instance, there is a scarcity, but it's artificial in the sense that people are simply hoarding their cash out of concern about what will happen after the December 31 date that the Supreme Court had initially set as the validity for the old notes. Of course, that order has been vacated, but the CBN hasn't done enough, in my view, to let the public know that deadline no longer exists. So that uncertainty will go away. In the first week of January, by second week of January, I'm sure you'll see normalization of, you'll see the beginning of normalization of availability of cash. And I'm sure before February, everything should be back to normal. So this, we won't see, things go as bad as they did in February and March of this year, this time around.
Okay, we really do hope so. And now, this festive season, this is the period where people spend the most, and this can definitely lead to some level of financial challenges. So what are the practical tips or practical steps you would encourage individuals, to utilize or to, put in place to ensure that they don't overspend during the season?
One of the first things that I think everybody should understand is that you've got a target on your back during this period. From retailers, everybody, every business organization today is targeting you, it's targeting your pocket. And they're doing it in very smart ways, very subliminal ways. They're targeting you with advertising. They're targeting you with promotions. They're targeting you with, what would I call it now? The entire mood of the season, creating a mood that will put you in a state of mind where you want to spend. So you have to be aware of this. You've got to be very self-aware during this season to prevent yourself from getting into impulse spending. So if you go, for example, to the Ikeja City Mall today, from as far back as October, the Christmas hangings had gone up. From as far back as late October, Christmas decorations had gone up. This is not a coincidence. This is a simple way of creating the atmosphere, that festive mood and atmosphere, begin to remind people that Christmas is around the corner. You need to start preparing, start buying ahead of time. So, and now that the season is here, everywhere you go, somebody is bombarding you with one message or the other, reminding you that this is Christmas, reminding you that you must celebrate, reminding you that you must buy things for yourself, reminding you that you must buy gifts for your children, reminding you that you must buy gifts for your family members. It's an annual ritual. My advice to, the ordinary man on the street and, the average consumer out there is for you to have your wits about you and at least be conscious of what you're doing, to ensure that whatever you do, it's because you have decided you wanted to do it. It's because you have planned ahead to do it, rather than because you've seen a message somewhere and you say, oh, this is so nice, I want to do this, or oh, this is so nice, I want to buy it for my children and all that. I would advise that you don't allow yourself get drawn into impulse buying. I always tell people that Christmas comes once a year, it will come and it will go, and then there'll be another one next year. So you don't want to make it seem like it's the end of the world if there are things that you either cannot do or that you decide that you don't want to do. Don't allow pressures to push you. Don't allow pressures from your children, for example, to push you to buy things that maybe you truly can't afford. Not forgetting that immediately after Christmas is January, and school fees will come up, rent, will become due, and all of that. So you really do want to be very careful about how you go about managing your finances. If you combine, the spend that is being put into trying to pass messages to consumers, you find that hundreds of millions, maybe billions of naira will be spent to catch you, so to speak, during this period. So be aware of it, be conscious of it, and ensure that you spend only what you have planned to spend. I do believe that most people, if financially savvy people, you would have a plan. I do believe that you already have your plan with regards to what you want to do, during this festive period. My advice is stick to it. Don't allow anybody, any beautiful looking TV advert, commercial, radio commercial, something on the internet, something on social media, push you into spending monies that you did not plan to spend. Bearing in mind that immediately after the festivities, there will be obligations. So if for the salary earners, the joke is usually that January has 60 days every year, because your payday, for the January payday, for a lot of people, the money is gone already. They spent it in December, so they have to wait until February before they are able to begin to balance things out. You don't want to be caught, in that mood. Control your spend, make sure you don't do impulse buying, stick with your plan, and enjoy the season as much as you can, but keep your head on your shoulders. Don't get carried away.
All right, Mr. Segun. Now, we understand the fact that some businesses thrive in this season, while others take the back seat, right? So now, for businesses that are not really patronized during the festive season, how do they, ensure that they are still productive?
I mean, look, depending on what sector of the economy you operate in, the festive season will mean different things to different businesses. But regardless of what you do, there's always something. There's always a piece of the pie for you. So if you're in transport and logistics, people are buying more. They're traveling more. In telecoms, people are going to be talking to family more. So even if you're playing at the bottom of the telecoms value chain and you're just selling recharge cards, you have to find a way to position yourself to ensure that you are available to be the one to dispense the airtime and the data to the people that are going to be using more of that. Typically, across almost any sector there will be a higher spend by people. Remember, we had something called Black Friday that would start sometime in the middle of November or thereabouts. And from that moment up until January, people are being pushed and encouraged to spend, and everybody has a Black Friday, some sort of discount program to try and draw, consumers in. So if you operate in the food business, well, this is your season. If you sell drinks or you operate a relaxation center, for example, this is your season. This is the time that people are going to be going out to look for fun. Hospitality industry, and so many others. But if you happen to be in sectors where perhaps there isn't much of an uptick in demand for your products or services, say, for example, you're in consulting, research, stuff like that, well, it's a time when people are winding down. You will just simply have to find a way to ensure that you do also benefit from what's happening during the festivities, even if all that will mean is maybe just taking time off to also unwind yourself and prepare and recharge yourself to, attack the new year with renewed energy, and all of that. Then, well, so be it, do that. But I think that there's something for everyone, during the festive period, and it's all you have to do is, be deliberate about looking for the opportunities and you find them.
All right. We understand the fact that in this festive season there will be, due to so many challenges, especially in transportation, the extreme hike in transportation fares, has become a really big challenge during this period. Now, this has also led to so many people having to borrow, to ensure that they still, get to travel, because some people have that, especially amongst some a part of Nigeria, they just have to travel back to their villages for one reason or the other during the festive period. Now, what strategies, can they put in place, or can Nigerians put in place to ensure that they don't go beyond their budget and they spend within their budget?
I mean, especially when you juxtapose this, what you just said now, with the inflationary trend that we have seen, in the country in the last year, that has gotten worse since the new administration came on board and, has embarked on its reform, liberal policies. Transportation fares, amongst other things, have really, really increased, in some cases doubled. So, for me, it's very simple. Do you have to travel? Bearing in mind that when you do travel, it's not just the transport costs that you have to think about. There are associated expenses that must follow, that movement that you are conducting. So when you get to the village, for example, you can't go empty-handed, surely. You're going to go bearing gifts. When you get there, you're going to take people out, for some sort of experience for the festivities. So you will have to have a very good budget, amount in your pocket to fund that trip. So do you have to go? Is it possible, for example, to take some of that money, package a gift, send it to your parents at home or your siblings or whatever, whoever it is that you would have gone to see, and then save the rest and prepare, enjoy yourself in Lagos or wherever your base is, and prepare for the new year. Some of these things, we have to be pragmatic. We have to be realistic, and you may have to break out of the standard societal norms and expectations. These pressures that we put upon ourselves as society, as humanity. Sometimes they're not real. They're plastic, and if you break through it, you find that there's nothing on the other side other than just normalcy. So that would be my advice. Only do if you can afford it comfortably. If you can't afford it, it makes absolutely zero sense to go borrow money to travel, go spend money, and then come back and start trying to pay your debts. You find that during this period, one of the sectors that will be targeting people that will be pursuing you vigorously are lending companies and digital banks, these finance houses. Right? They're going to be targeting you. You have to resist it with all your might and ensure that you don't fall victim, to the temptation to just borrow because the money is being thrown at you. Then at the end of the day, you are trying to balance the books. So I think it's just something for people to be very conscious about and ensure that whatever they're doing, it's because they have decided and they have planned to do it, and it's something that will work for them, not put them under unnecessary pressure after the festivities.
All right. Now let's look at governmental involvement in all of this. The federal government said, during the week that there will be some kind of subsidy when it comes to transportation. That price of transportation would be reduced, just to ensure that Nigerians enjoy the festivities. Do you think that is a good move? Do you think we need more of such approaches to ensure that, Nigerians have a good festive season, basically?
Look, it's a commendable initiative, especially given the hard times that Nigerians are going through currently. It's not a bad idea. The challenge with that idea is that the public transport infrastructure itself is very fragile, non-existent in some places. So how exactly will this subsidy be transported, to the average Nigerian? If you are using trains, for example, any of the train services that are currently working, Lagos to Ibadan, Abuja to Kaduna, maybe Warri to Itakpe, whatever the condition of those services are, then maybe you can benefit from these subsidies, these rebates. You live in Lagos, use the BRT a lot, and the Blue Line that's just started, you can benefit from the subsidies and the rebates. There are other parts of the country where government has public transportation infrastructure, running, so they can deploy that. But you will agree with me that the majority of Nigerian, travelers and what have you, they use privately run public transportation. So how do they get these subsidies? So it's a good initiative, but sadly, I don't see how it's going to cascade to enough people to create the macroeconomic impacts that it could create. To, for example, lighten the burden on the disposable income of the average Nigerian consumer. That is not going to happen because government is not strong enough in terms of public transportation infrastructure. So for this type of policy to have the desired impact. But, whatever small fraction or fragment of society that this will help and that it will trickle down to, they will enjoy this. And to that extent, it's a welcome move by the government. But clearly, there are far more fundamental, significant measures and policies that need to be put in place.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Segun Sopitan. We'll go on a quick break now and return to continue this conversation. Stay with us, please.
Hi, I'm Blessing Naiche, anchor and exchange on Souq News. The beautiful season is here again.
I smell Christmas. Wow.
Ta-da! It's Christmas.
Christmas is a holiday where we celebrate the birth of Christ. It is a super celebration where we share love and many cheers.
Christmas, a time to make merry and show love. Spend time. Go out there and spend time with your family and friends and loved ones. You don't get it every time.
Don't get it with the family.
She's so excited.
I can't wait to have my plate of rice and chicken.
Merry Christmas. We wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. We wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of our heart.
I am Lady Santa. Merry Christmas.
I'm Adesiwa Iramasele. I'm a presenter and anchor right here on Souq News. And I'm wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
Merry Christmas. Have fun.
I am Osama Zaida Hosa, Femi Watch Limited owner of Souq News and Watch Radio. Wishing you a very wonderful Christmas. Christmas represents the incarnation of God, becoming man and showing us the greatest of love. It's a season to love one another. Show love to a brother out there and let the love move around.
Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year!
Let us also give thanks for Jesus, because Jesus is the reason for this whole season. It's also the reason why we have hope that as we journey into the new year, it will not be in vain and that things will get better.
This Christmas, I'm joining this unit in wishing Nigerians wherever they are, saying to them, Merry Christmas.
The church is wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, a happy and prosperous New Year.
I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance.
I wish everybody in Nigeria Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. God bless Nigeria. God bless everybody.
Have a good Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas. I wish you all the best.
My greetings go first to the President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his wife, Senator Remi Tinubu. As we celebrate Christmas, I want to greet the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the Oba of Lagos and his traditional chiefs, the Catholic Bishop of Lagos, Dr. Adewale Martins, and all Nigerians. I wish you all a very happy Christmas. Eko ni baje o, eku odun, eku yedun.
It's Christmas and lots of activity like jamboree, reunion, and the likes are already on top gear. In all of this, we would like to know what Christmas is to you. So come along as we gather diverse opinion on Christmas.
End of the year, holidays. And in some communities, in fact, in most communities, especially in the East, they use the period to organize a whole lot of things. Like, for instance, in my own community, we have Ofala Festival.
Christmas is the celebration of Christ and is always celebrated on the 25th of every year.
My Christmas is the celebration of Christ.
Well, I'm staying indoor. I don't want stress because it's always traffic. On the 25th is always rowdy and noisy, so I don't want to. So I would prefer to stay indoor.
I'll be going out with my family.
Christmas for me is one of those seasons that we share love. We tell people about the good news of the birth of Christ. We have fun with family and friends. It's usually more of a retreat for us, family, friends, age grades, get together, do a lot of things, and then we celebrate and thank God for the year that we've already concluded, and then we set up new goals for the next year.
Be with them, have fun. For me, I miss my family.
As for me, it's celebration period. You know, it has no religious significance as far as I'm concerned. It was orchestrated and put together by some people, you know, to celebrate a period of time. You know, and then we just come to celebrate it. But for me, that's all that it is. You know, it has nothing to do with maybe the born person, the no born person.
Me as a Christian, is a time we can commemorate the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. So we try to keep our hearts and our environment in order for the celebration.
Just a time to reflect on love and then to celebrate Christ. And a time for family reunion also.
It is what it is. Different stroke for different folks. Having an understanding of what Christmas is to you. I hope you all make the best out of this season. Merry Christmas. Praise Matthias. Souq News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Business Insight, the Christmas edition. And today we are discussing navigating challenges, financial challenges in the festive season. And we still have with us virtually Mr. Souq Shopiton, and he is the chairman of Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network. He has been with us for the past couple of minutes discussing this topic and is still with us. Mr. Souq, hope you're still with us, please.
Yeah, I'm here.
So, what are the steps you would advise people to take at the beginning of the year so that you can have a blissful festive season? You know, because sometimes all of these challenges come because many people don't plan for this season before the season actually comes. So they, you know, struggle financially trying to meet up with all the demands that comes with the season. How would you suggest they actually tackle this challenge?
Well, I mean, you said it all. Before start thinking about December, how about thinking about January, February, March, April, the months in between, and have a plan for how you make it through that period, given the challenges that we face as a country at the moment, the economic challenges. So clearly, we're in December now. It's a bit of a damp now look because this is Christmas Day, and ordinarily you would say let people just have fun and enjoy themselves. But Christmas will come. It has come. Will go. By tomorrow, it's done. It's Boxing Day, and then before you blink, it's January. The year begins to run. It's a time to relax, enjoy yourself. Thank God for a year that has, you've survived another year or thrived through the year, whatever your story might be, And then January will come, and then, you can look forward into the future. If you haven't planned for 2024 by now, you're already late. So maybe it's not too late to just look around you. What can you do to improve your income? What can you do to improve yourself? If you're a salary earner, what are you going to do to improve the value you will deliver to your employer? What skills are you going to acquire? What additional personal development efforts are you going to make? Whether it's in terms of courses that you're going to take, or in whichever way you can improve yourself, to improve the value that you carry and deliver, which will then be rewarded either with promotions or salary raises or whatever. And if you're a private business person, whether you're a small business or even a large corporation, what can you do differently in 2024 that will ensure that you end 2024, that this time next year, you're looking back and you're celebrating because you were deliberate about the things that you did in between the two festive seasons. In December of 2023 and December of 2024, you were deliberate about the things that you did. So those are the kind of things that we what additional capacity, what new products do you want to offer, depending on what you do. If you're a tailor, what new styles, what new design techniques can you pick up, that would ensure that you increase your earning capacity. If you're a retailer, if you're a retail business, what additional offerings can you put on your offerings to ensure that you can attract more income for the new year? How can you, for example, you ask yourself, can I double my income this year in 2024 as compared to what I did in 2023? So, and if I can, what are the things that I need to do to achieve that? So yeah, so those types of things are the things that I think we need to be thinking about to ensure that 2024 Christmas is better, more enjoyable than this one may have been for you.
Now, Mr. Souq, beyond the festivities, what steps can be taken to encourage financial literacy amongst Nigerians to help them build resilience, financially, even in the future?
Well, I mean, that's these types of things are they fall within the purview of the individual, making sure that you are building yourself. You are going year from year, growing bigger and better, as a person, in terms of how you approach life, how you do things. So improving your financial literacy, for example, It's not something that you can place on the shoulders of anybody other than the individual listening to this conversation right now. How can you better your ability to, manage your funds? There are so many. What I would suggest is for everybody listening, YouTube is an incredibly underutilized resource. It's got billions and billions of hours of learning in any field. And I mean any field. There's literally nothing that you need to learn to do that you can't get on that social media platform. So when you talk about financial literacy, there are courses there that are free. I mean, you won't even call them courses. They're just videos that somebody has put out there to help you, teach you how to do your basic budget, how to do your basic profit and loss statement, income and expenditure statement, as the case may be, depending on whether you're a business or just an individual. So go there, go pick it up. And there are some other websites and platforms where there are free courses that will help people learn some of these new skills, new life skills that would put you in a better stead to do better in the new year. So for any of these things, the starting point is recognizing and understanding that it's something that you want to do, and that there is a gap to be filled, a knowledge gap. For a lot of people, it might be financial literacy, but there are so many other things that we can try to gaps in our lives, in terms of our abilities that we can plug by going to these platforms, taking advantage of the knowledge that is sitting there free, waiting to be picked up. But talking about the financial literacy that you speak about, I think that go to YouTube, I'm not going to mention specific websites, but just go to Google, for example, and just type free financial literacy course. And they will pop at you. There's so many of them out there. And, some of them you only need a week or 2 weeks, maybe even shorter, depending on how quick a learner you are. And then you are up and running, and you apply those skills, and you're shocked at the dramatic results that achieve.
All right. So, what role would you say artificial intelligence can play in helping, individuals, manage their finances better?
Well, we're now at a stage in this whole progression of the use of science and technology as the human race, where we are we're just on the borderline of something new. AI, artificial intelligence, has been gaining an ascendance and is beginning to permeate into every area of our lives. So, this issue of financial literacy, casting your budget, doing your numbers may not be different. I think the thing to understand is that all of the applications that you use to do these things, to perform these tasks, have AI embedded in them now. Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, other spreadsheets, online, Google Sheets, for example, all of them now have AI embedded in them. And what it could help you do, for example, is it asks you for some inputs, and you provide those inputs, and it can actually help you do your budgets. So AI is a new frontier. The applications and the use cases, so to speak, are still being explored and discovered. So it's an exciting new time as far as AI is concerned. The possibilities are literally endless. So for me, it's just to encourage everybody to recognize this. No matter what level of literacy you have with regards to computing, with regards to the use of technology, social media, recognize that these things have been simplified. No matter your level, of skill and understanding of these things, you can use it. So don't be intimidated by the word AI, for example. It's basically been simplified. You don't need to know how it works. Just go there, find out how you can type in your questions. AI will come back to you with answers and ideas and suggestions as to what you can do for yourself in the area of interest that you're talking about.
All right, we are rounding off the show, but I would like your final thoughts. I would also like for you to touch a bit on this narrative. We get to hear that during the festive season, this cash issues happen so that people can, utilize their bank apps, more, and that of course incurs some kind of other background debits that occurs, and thereby making more money for the bank. So of course, if you don't have cash at hand, you do a lot of transfers, and this period there's a lot of spending going on, so people get to make lots of transfers. Do you think this is a thing, or this is just a wrong mindset to have?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a wrong mindset. People are free to speculate, and what happens is, people will speculate when there's a dearth of information. This is unfortunately the failure of the central bank in managing what is happening. There's simply too little information. So it's not surprising that people are saying these things. I would, of course, give no credence whatsoever to that type of talk, because I don't believe in conspiracy theories. So I don't think that banks have sat down somewhere to say, look, hey, this is the new way to quickly make some money. Let's drive traffic to electronic channels, payment channels, and all that. I don't think so. There is a real problem that has been created by the failings of regulators and the government agencies responsible for these sectors to do the things that they should have done. And that's that about that. Of course, that will drive payment traffic to the electronic channels, and that's good for the country. The flip side of that, unfortunately, of course, is that the capacity of those channels to carry the extra traffic is being tested severely, and they're failing. So the banks need to invest more in ramping up their capacity, the capacity of their infrastructure, the capacity of their payment infrastructure, the capacity of their networks, and all of that, to ensure that transactions do succeed when people turn to those channels in the absence of cash. But to suggest that this is deliberate, sorry, I don't believe that. I think it's a good thing, and it should just be embraced by as many people as possible. It's cherry that you can go to the market during this festive season and buy meat, buy pepper, and buy anything else that you want to buy in any open market that you want to go to, and you can make transfers to pay for them. I think that's fantastic. It's the way to go. It has happened to us almost by accident as a result of the scarcity of cash that happened in March and February, and we're beginning to see February and March, and we're beginning to see that again this time. So it's a good thing, but I don't think that there's any deliberate effort by anybody to starve us of cash so that we can use those things. I think those things have come about because of some of the policy positions that have been taken by the regulators in the last 10 years. We're now just beginning to see the situation force us to adopt those things. I think it's good for the economy. We should encourage that.
So, can we have your final thoughts on the topic now? Just anything we probably did not get to talk about in the course of our conversation. So you want to just chip that in before we round off?
Well, I think it's just for us to look into the future as individuals, as a country, as businesses, and make the most of the situation. We do have, when you talked about what we're talking about today, you talked about the challenges, that we face as a country, in the economy, in the financial sector. Those challenges are also opportunities. And for me, that would be my final thought. Remember that every challenge is just an opportunity quoted and to look like problems. Find solutions to them and you will make money. That applies to no matter what you do and no matter what level you play at. That, I think, for me, would be a good way to say my final thoughts.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Segun Sopitan, for your time on the show. And Merry Christmas to you. We hope you have a wonderful celebration.
Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas, Nigeria.
All right, and that's the size of Business Insights, the Christmas edition. Many thanks to you for watching, and we hope that your Christmas is amazing. And from everyone else here at Souq News and the team on Business Insight, the producer and everybody else, we wish you a Merry Christmas. And I'm Adesuwai Ramasele, and thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.